Yeah, fishy, fishy, fishy.
What's going on, YouTube? Always good to see you. It's James with Here Fishy Outdoors. Coming to you from the Here Fishy Outdoors Clubhouse, aka my garage. In today's video, we're going to talk about trout fishing. I'm going to talk about the gear I use, the different setups, the different baits and techniques I use, as well as the different lures. Everything you will need to hopefully be successful in catching trout. Stay tuned. Alright, first thing I'm going to talk about is the gear and techniques that I use for catching trout. There are many different ways and techniques that you can use, but these are my three favorites. First of all is using a Carolina rig and fishing from the bottom. I do this at all times of the day, all seasons. Really doesn't matter. I've had the most success overall using this technique. So let me show you right now. So in this setup I have a micro light 7-foot, I believe it's 7-foot, 6-foot rod from Bass Pro Shops. And then I have a Carolina rig setup. So on here I have a 1-ounce egg sinker on top of a barrel swivel. And then I have about 2 to 2.5 feet of leader to my hook. And I have a size 4 Gamakatsu octopus. It's like that bad boy right there. I usually use anywhere from size 4 to size 6 when I'm trout fishing. Size 6 is my primary. Size 4 is acceptable. So that's the setup I have right here. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, but a Carolina rig, you cast your bait out. This weight sits on the bottom, and then whatever bait you have on, say you have power bait, that's going to float. So however long your leader is, that's how far from the bottom that it floats. So depending on what kind of vegetation or rocks or anything like that are on the bottom of the lake, it's important to mix up the length of your leader. So check and see what kind of vegetation is in the lake. Say there's like 2-foot long grass or things like that in the bottom. You want to make sure that leader is longer than 2 feet so that that bait is floating above the vegetation. So that is the Carolina rig setup. Next I have a bobber setup, and if you've seen my previous video, you know that it's going to be a slip bobber setup. This is my absolute favorite. Once again, you have your bobber stop on the top of the line to a bead right here, to your slip bobber that moves freely on the line. I have another bead to my barrel swivel, and then I have a couple of split shot weights that I pinch on the line leading down to that hook. Once again, I have that size 4 hook on there. Again, you can use this at all times of the day. I tend to use bobbers in the morning, and then I'll make them shallower, closer to the surface of the water. In the morning, trout are more active. You'll see them jumping on the surface of the water, feeding on insects. So in the morning, as well as just before sundown, is when the fish are going to be more active. You can use this setup in the middle of the day. This is when you're going to want to adjust your bobber stop to be deeper. Especially if it's warmer out. The trout are a cold water species, and they will be moving deeper in the pond or reservoir or wherever you're at. So it's good to mix up the depths. You can play with that. But that is the second setup I prefer to use. And then lastly, or let me backtrack a little bit. So this rod is another micro series by Shakespeare. It is a 7-foot rod. It's a light action, 4 to 10 pound line on there. So these are a lot of fun. I like these micros and these ultralight rods, especially when you're fishing for trout. They're a ton of fun to fight the fish on. You can catch small and medium size and even large size fish on these. All right, lastly, I have a Shakespeare micro series once again. This is a 4'6", very short rod. And on here I have a spinner. So this third technique I like to use is throwing lures or spinners or spoons anything of that nature that mimics insects or small fish that the trout feed on. Some of these spinners and lures are weighted, so you don't have to add extra weight. On this setup, I have two small split shots about 2 feet above the spinner. This will allow you to cast further. If it's a little windier out, if you're in a bigger reservoir that has deeper water, you might want to add a little extra weight. That allows the lure to sink down to the fish quicker, and you can cast faster. So depending on your rod, if your rod is very good, your rod and reel are very good at casting and you can cast out pretty far, you do not need to add extra weight. It's just something that I do so I can get it out there further and cover more water. So first, I'm going to go over, I just went over the rod and reel setup and the techniques. Next, I'm going to go over the tackle and the different weights that I use. Alright, to start off, for my main line and even for my leader, I prefer to use fluorocarbon. You can also use monofilament. For your main line, you can use braided line as well. I have some braided line down here, 20 pound, 15 pound test. Just kind of user preference. Trout tend to be finicky, and they can scare easily, so it's important to use see-through line that leads to your bait. That way your presentation, so when you're presenting the bait to the fish, it looks as natural as possible. So I use fluorocarbon. I found it to be the best. Again, personal preference. If you are going to use braided line, it's important to put a barrel swivel on that main line and then use fluorocarbon or monofilament down to your hook so that it remains clear. I use usually about 8 to 12 pound tests when I'm fishing for trout. That's about all you need. So if I use like a 10 pound test main line, I'll use like 8 pound or 6 pound leader. That way it remains clear, and it's hard for the trout to see. For my Carolina rig setup, I use bullet weight, egg sinkers, anywhere. These are ½ ounce. I do have some 3/4 ounce. I do have 1 ounce setups as well. So depending on the body of water, how far out you want to cast, what kind of vegetation's on the bottom, you can mix up your different size weights. These are the split shots I was talking about, essentially pinch weights that you put on your line. I use these below my bobber or sometimes on my lure setup as well. And then once again, I have size 6. You can see the sizes up here. So size 6 I usually use for trout when I'm fishing with power bait or worms. And then I'll even go to about a size 4. So that's the line, the weights, and the hooks that I use for trout. And next I'm going to be talking about the different baits and lures that I use. Alright, first I want to talk about something that's been around for years and years. There are different brands, but this one is the original, I believe, Berkley Power Bait. So you can see it has some extra scent, some trout scent on there. It does float. And there are different colors. This one is pink. You see a rainbow sherbet, like a sherbet color. I have a corn color. I heard that fish like corn, so sometimes if they see something that looks like that. This one is garlic scent as well. I have this one that has been my old faithful, I will call it. This is chartreuse. Chartreuse, it is, I don't know if you can see the sparkles in there. And then they also have garlic scented of that as well. And then another thing, these are called Power Eggs. These are also by Berkley, and they are garlic scented, and these also float. So I will show you a setup I use these with. So here's an example. This one's been used a little bit, but I'll put 3 Power Eggs above my hook. And then I have my leader up to my barrel swivel. And then I will use that this Carolina rig. And what I do with that is I'll put a small piece of nightcrawler just above the hook. And those Power Eggs allow it to float. So With my Carolina rig, my go-to is either power bait or these power eggs with a small piece, like a 1/2 inch of nightcrawler on the hook. And then, as always, I never leave home without my extra scent. So, garlic has been my number one. I apply that directly to the power bait, and then I rub it in, put plenty of it on there. I will also apply it to the nightcrawler and power egg setup as well. Fish, especially trout, seem to love this garlic scent. Sometimes, if there's not already garlic scent on there, I will apply different scents. So I have shrimp. I even have crayfish. Some of these other, like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, Walmart, they'll have like trout scent and some other scents. So it's important to mix it up and give those trout a different presentation. One thing I do, for example, I have this pink power bait or the sherbet that might look like a little shrimp or crawfish to the trout. So what I will do is pair that with the shrimp scent. So for example, the pink with the shrimp scent, and if I'm using orange, I'll maybe add the crayfish just to kind of give it that natural look for the trout. So those are the pairings that I use with the power bait, power eggs, and nightcrawler. And next, I will go over some of the spinners and lures that I throw at them. All right, next up, another thing I like to use is called a trout magnet. These sometimes come in a kit with little bobbers and little hooks and jig heads. This little pink jig head is an example. So what that is, it's weighted and it's connected to the hook, and then you can thread that little trout magnet on there, and it looks like a little grub or a little insect. You can fish these on this slip bobber setup. Instead of using that hook that I had on earlier, you can substitute this jig head and hook, and you can float that if you're fishing down a river or even in a reservoir. You can kind of twitch the bobber and make that dance in the water. So that's one option there. Next, here's an example of another jig head. You see it has an eyeball there. It's green, so it's just a different color, and it's got a hook. Here's an example of something I put on that jig head. So it's like a little grub, almost looks like a little squid. And that's another presentation that you can give them. You can fish that on a bobber, or you can just cast it out there and kind of jig it and retrieve it as well. Another option I like to add on a bobber, this is called a marabou jig. When this gets wet, this looks like an insect or a fly in the water, and it's paired with a black jig head. So trout feed on insects, so these come in all sorts of colors as well. And again, you can tie the line directly to this and substitute it for that hook with your bobber setup, and you can float this around there as well. So if I'm using a bobber, I like to use plenty of different things to present to the trout. You can even use power bait, and you can even use that nightcrawler setup as well on the bobbers. So that's why a bobber is a good thing to use. It's very versatile, and you can mix it up there. So next I have some spinners that I want to show you. Again, there's all types of spinners and lures you can use. I like to have all sorts of different kinds and colors and sizes. So this one's an example. You got a red body with yellow speckles. You have your treble hook, black and yellow spoon that'll spin in the water. So this is by Panther Martin. This is a weighted spinner as well. So this is one of my go-to spinners. This one's a little bit bigger with a gold blade, yellow and black body. I've had a lot of luck on these ones. You got like a neon yellow, red body. You have a rainbow color. So all sorts of different presentations that Panther Martin makes, different sizes that you can throw at the fish. This is one of my favorite ones. A buddy I just went to Blue Mesa Reservoir, Trench Fishing Entertainment. Shout out to him. Check out his channel. This is by Joe's Fly. They sell these at Walmart, Bass Pro, probably Sportsman's, but this one literally looks like a fly in the water, but it's a spinner. So this spoon will spin. I've had a tremendous amount of luck with these. So these are very good. They are not weighted, they're very light, so I always add those extra split shots above these to get them down to the fish. But very good spinner to use, highly recommend. Right here we have by Blue Fox. It's their Vibrix spinner. This one is all gold. Gold body, looks like a little fish on there. These guys are weighted. This is a smaller one I have here. And this one vibrates pretty good in the water, but this is also a very good one by Blue Fox. And the old school tried and true that's been around for years, this is your rooster tail. These come in tons of different colors and patterns. You know, there's rainbow trout ones. It's good to mix it up. Get some light colors, natural colors, dark colors. Make sure you have a big arsenal to throw at these fish. This guy here, another one that looks like a little fly in the water. And it's got some propeller on the front. This is called a Pistol Pete. Definitely a very good one as well. Next we have our Rapala. So that's an example. These are your trout pattern Rapala. Some of these swim to different depths, things of that nature, different sizes. That was an F7 size. Different patterns, right? So you have like a rainbow trout pattern, brook trout, brown trout patterns. So some of these fish, like rainbow trout, brown trout, they are territorial and they will strike other smaller fish. So it's very good to throw these. These work well with brown trout, cutthroats. I've caught rainbow trout on these as well. So good to have a mixture of those. Right here, I usually use these for walleye. It's called a blade bait. But these smaller ones, I have caught trout on before. What these do is they vibrate super hard in the water. So they come at the trout, wiggling very hard, vibrating the water around them. So very good to attract fish. We have these little Cleo spoons. Just another lure you can cast. This is a gold and red one, very popular. We have Castmaster lures. This one's yellow and silver. These are weighted. Had a lot of luck with these too. I usually cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, and then slowly retrieve. And then I have the blue and silver that kind of looks like a minnow or a small bait fish in the water. So these are examples, some examples of spinners and different lures and spoons that I've had luck on with trout that you can definitely use. So it's very good to mix it up. I like to bring all sorts of different things with you because one day the trout might like the yellow pattern, the next day they might like black. So very good to mix it up. I've had luck with all of these baits. I've been trout fishing for many years, had an extreme amount of luck, so very good to mix up the bait. Alright, so thank you for watching my trout tutorial video. I hope it was very beneficial to you. I have tried and tested all of these different techniques and baits and lures. I've caught many trout over the years. It's good to mix it up, have some fun, try different things. If you have a 2-rod endorsement on your license, which I always do, I always recommend it. What I like to do is throw a Carolina rig set up with power bait and garlic right away, and then I'll have the other rod casting and retrieving lures and spinners to try to get some of those active fish in the morning. So again, mix it up. Try to do what you can. Work different patterns and colors and scents for these fish. Again, have some fun. Feel free to in the comments if you guys want to see any other tips or tricks for trout or have any questions or anything. Feel free to let me know. Otherwise, have some fun, catch you some fish.